Hello everyone, welcome back to the YouTube channel. My name is Mike and today we're continuing to have a look at historical stuff on YouTube. So today we're doing something that we haven't actually done on the channel before, but I've mentioned before, and this is epic rap battles of history. Now the last time I actually listened to these videos myself, or watched these videos rather, I was in education myself, so it's been quite a while. And I thought, yeah, let's try it out. Maybe it's something that's a bit less serious, a bit more light-hearted, kind of shorter in scale hopefully, although I do ramble quite a bit so it could be longer. And then, yeah, just have a kind of fun look at these, and if people watch them, if they like this kind of style, and I'll be trying to keep the same sort of format that I do with Sabaton and other things, where I pause it and divulge or fill in gaps where I can and where I need to, really, without interrupting the flow too much, hopefully. And that's what I want to do. And so I typed in epic rap battles of history, just skimmed through the various videos that was there, and this one was the one that piqued my interest, Shaka Zulu versus Julius Caesar. Shaka Zulu, of course, is one of the people who's well known, probably African leaders in modern contemporary history when you think of African leaders. And, you know, he revolutionized the way that the Zulus worked, the way that they fought, the way that they dealt with neighboring tribes, and, you know, depending on what you mean, dealt can mean very different things. And then, of course, you have Julius Caesar, who I think is probably one of the most prominent and important figures in global history. I mean, obviously I'm talking biased as an Englishman, and, you know, the emphasis on Rome and Europe, but I feel like the world over people know who Julius Caesar is for various reasons. But yeah, so without further ado, let's have a gander. And again, as I said at the Salmonella video, in this video, or if it's anything like I remember epic rap battles of history being when I used to watch them, is they do contain some foul language and some swearing. So if that's the type of thing that offends you or upsets you, then probably best to skip this one. But let's get into it, shall we?
Julius Caesar versus Shaka Zulu! It's Caesar, he's a commander. Thinks he can dance with Conan of the savannah. But when I go hand to hand with you, I go hammer. Knock off his dome, wrap it up in his own banner. Send it back to Rome with a message from the Zulu. If you battle Shaka, this will happen to you. If you cross that equator, you'll head straight into a massacre. Fuck by more than just Cleopatra and Africa.
You talk a lot of shit for a man wearing a diaper. I heard you had poison spit. Where was it in this cipher? Cause all I hear is threats from a brute with no discipline. And I'm ruling over you like a boot full of my citizens. And you should take your cowskin shield and hide under it. You're fucking with the most triumphant third of the triumvirate. I'm first to the empire and last of the Republicans. And hunting you accompanied by legions of my country. Oh, ask my kidnappers if I'm just a shit talker. Doc J dunk on you like boom shakalaka. So don't go rattling your sticks at me. If I wanted to Shakespeare, I'd waggle my biography.
I heard of your play. Tell me, how does it end? Oh yes, you get stabbed many times by your friends. So what you gonna do with your Roman sword? When the lines of your legion get caught by the horns of the Zulu warriors. Played on thorns to dismember any emperor's pasty white horn. I got the strength of a lion and the speed of a cheetah. And everyone knows you're just a chicken, Caesar.
And I be a hyena, cause I'm going to laugh. Pave roads with the bones of your goat-herding ass. First my front lines, I'll drop back and spank you in the chest. Then I'll decimate your horns. You can't outfight the best. Let your reserves come at me, my ballista's cocked at you. When I take, I always keep my whole crew. Cause there's no use in murdering you and your heathen. You can grow my wheat for me after you're beaten.
Hold on, hold stand, to the side.
Okay, so I've changed my mind with the way that I do Sabaton videos. I feel like if I do more epic rap battles of history videos in the future, I feel like it'd probably be beneficial just to let me allow the video to flow, given it's only 1 minute 40 seconds up until the ending, and I feel like if I pause in between, it's going to disrupt the kind of flow of the music and the verses. So let's just go back and through it. So let's just go verse by verse here, and then I'll pause it and continue as we go.
It's Caesar, he's a commander. Thinks he can dance with Conan of the savannah. But when I go hand to hand with you, I go hammer. Knock off his dome, wrap it up in his own banner. Send it back to Rome with a message from the Zulu. If you battle Shaka, this will happen to you. If you cross that equator, you'll head straight into a massacre. Fuck by more than just Cleopatra and Africa.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know as well, the Zulu kingdom under Shaka Zulu rapidly expanded. He was kind of revolutionized the way that the Zulus fought, the kind of drill, the martial drills, and as a result, they was very successful both in interfighting between each other, and then once they actually became more of a unified kingdom, so to speak, then they had a bit more success in fighting with their neighbours. And this, arguably, some scholars say that he just stole things that other indigenous leaders were doing and basically just amalgamated them all together to present them as if he was the driving force behind them. But there are others, obviously, who say that he was the innovator himself. I don't know enough about that topic to actually pass a judgment, so I'm not going to say either way. If you want to really find out that, and then I advise you probably to do your own reading and try and get a balance of yourself. But when it says as well, you head straight into a massacre, and they get more than Cleopatra in Africa, and so that's both a double entendre. So for one, it means that obviously if he goes into Africa, then Shaka and Zulu will mess him up, not fornicate with him. So that's for one, otherwise that would be quite strange to have Shaka Zulu and Julius Caesar getting it off with each other. However, Julius Caesar was in a relatively long-term relationship with Cleopatra. And most people know who Cleopatra is, but Cleopatra was a queen in Ptolemaic Egypt, or a pharaoh. And so much so that her and Caesar actually had a son, whose name eludes me at the moment, which really annoys me. But yeah, Caesar and Cleopatra were an item, and they eventually had that, and so that kind of play on words there is both a double entendre to both that if Caesar goes into Africa, basically, or south of the equator, then not only, he's not only going to be messing with Cleopatra, but he's also going to be messing in another sense with Shaka Zulu. Caesar's verse.
You talk a lot of shit for a man wearing a diaper. I heard you had poison spit. Where was it in this cipher?
But here when it says, I heard you had poison spit, where was it in this cipher? And that's because Shaka Zulu is alluded to picking various herbs or flowers, and he would spit them in the eyes of his enemies and supposedly blind them. And so, again, this I really liked was a kind of both saying that his verse was not very good in insulting Caesar, but also, theoretically making that link to the poison spit that Shaka Zulu is supposed to have had.
Cause all I hear is threats from a brute with no discipline, and I'm ruling over you like a boot full of my citizens. And you should take your cowskin shield and hide under it. You're fucking with the most triumphant third of the triumvirate.
Okay, so the triumvirate as well is a kind of the freeway between Julius Caesar, Pompey, and Marcus Linnæus Crassus, and they were three hugely powerful men in Rome, and they kind of formed like the power base, so to speak, and ultimately it would result in power struggles between themselves. So, I mean, it wouldn't be the first triumvirate. After Caesar's death, there was indeed another triumvirate, and that was between Augustus, Mark Antony, and Lepidus as well, again, in North Africa. But then you had the triumvirate here, is you had Marcus Linnæus Crassus. He would die in battle fighting the Parthians, and then you'd have Pompey, who would actually be killed by the Egyptians. And there was this whole thing of when, despite them kind of being at odds with each other, Caesar and Pompey, the Egyptians captured Pompey and decapitated him. And they presented Caesar with his head, and Caesar was outraged by this. He was outraged by this, for any of you who have seen HBO's Rome series, you have the famous kind of almost the meme version of when he shouts at the Egyptians that he was a senator of Rome, and basically he didn't deserve to die like that. Because before the wars and stuff against each other as well, Caesar and Pompey were also quite good friends. And so ultimately as well, him being the one that outlived both Crassus and Pompey, he obviously is the most successful third of the triumvirate by virtue that he didn't die, or he's not yet.
I'm first to the empire and last of the Republicans, and hunting you accompanied by legions of my country. Oh, ask my kidnappers if I'm just a shit talker. That J-dunk on you like boom shakalaka. So don't go rattling your sticks at me. If I wanted to shake spears, I'd waggle my biography.
So the point that he makes as well about his kidnappers, asking basically if he's all all kind of fur coat, no knicker, so to speak, to use an English expression. And that is a result in one case he was captured by pirates, and he was treated relatively well. However, that he promised them that once he gets free, because he will come back and crucify them. And when he was eventually freed, when he made his own way, he returned and he kept that promise. And he did crucify the pirates, although I believe that the reports say, or remember, this is all conjecture as well, there's nothing entirely concrete, this might just be fabrication or historical myth, similar to what I said about the laconic phrase. However, it's reported that he killed the pirates first, before he crucified them, because the pirates did actually treat him nicely. So he still stood by his promise, but he did also show I suppose, a modicum of mercy, rather than letting them to die a slow and painful death. And of course Shakespeare, Julius Caesar, where Shakespeare gets stabbed at the end, which I assume Shaka Zulu is about. Yeah, well, I say assume, I just listened to this, but Shaka Zulu makes reference that, yes, of course, the way that Julius Caesar happens is Julius Caesar, just in real life, did get stabbed, I think 23 times or something like that, by various senators and people who were his friends. But let's get into Shaka Zulu's second verse.
I heard of your play. Tell me, how does it end? Oh yes, you get stabbed many times by your friend.
But although that is quite ironic, though, that he makes fun of Julius Caesar getting stabbed by his friends when Shaka Zulu himself was assassinated by his own half-brothers. So I feel like, there's a bit of a hypocrisy there between them to make fun of Julius Caesar for getting stabbed by his friends when Shaka Zulu also got murdered by his own half-brothers. But yeah.
So what you gonna do with your romance sword? When the lines of your legion get gored by the horns of the Zulu. Fight or thorn to dismember any emperor's pasty white horn. Has the strength of a lion and the speed of a cheetah. And everyone knows you're just a chicken, Caesar.
Okay, so as well, if any of you have listened to or watched my Rorke's Drift video, I made allusion to the bull's head. No, yeah, so this. So I tried to demonstrate this with my hands, and I think I ended up doing something like this in the past. And this would essentially be the idea is you'd have the hammer and anvil, so to speak, that would be more familiar with in European military. And what you would do is you'd have the head of the ball would be the blocking force. They would be the point that meets the enemy, and then you'd have the horns on the side, which would envelop, and then you'd have the kind of loins, I think it was, the loins or the haunches or something like that behind the head, and they would act as a reserve and an auxiliary flanking force. Basically, they just were there to go wherever they were needed. And so that's pretty cool. That's a lot easier to explain the kind of formation rather than me doing weird hand signals with people. But yeah, and chicken Caesar, obviously an allusion to the food, chicken Caesar. And now, Caesar's last verse.
Just a chicken, Caesar. Can I be a hyena? Cause I'm going to laugh.
Pave roads with the bones of your goat herding ass. First my front lines, I'll drop back and spank you in the chest. Then I'll decimate your horns. You can't outfight the best. Let your reserves come at me. My ballista's cocked and when I take, I always keep my whole crew. Cause there's no use in murdering you and your heathen. You can grow my wheat for me after you're beaten.
Okay, yeah. So, obviously you have the allusions to various Roman tactics, the emphasis on talking about how disciplined they are, and obviously they're not going to try and demonstrate that necessarily in a video, because obviously it's an entertainment video for musical purposes, it's not a military tactical video. However, the Roman Empire was able to grow mainly due to the discipline of Roman legions, and particularly when they was fighting the so-called barbarian peoples, the barbarian nations and stuff like that, the discipline of the Roman army to fight in lines, and particularly the kind of the maniple system as well, worked extremely well in dealing with that harsh discipline kind of needed to fight in those circumstances. And the last lines there is saying, no need murdering you and your heathen, you can grow my wheat for me after your beating. And this is because a lot of nations that were conquered by Rome would then go on to be subjugated, and those places would then be put to work to wheat, to growing food. The same thing happened with Egypt. Once Egypt come under the kind of spell of Rome, Egypt was transformed into the kind of breadbasket of the empire. But if a Roman army beat a nation or a tribe or a civilization on their own right, they would take thousands upon thousands of slaves. And this is no different to the Greeks when they done it, and various other peoples. And that would be what they would be put to work there. When I was just looking at this earlier and just had a little browse through the comments, a lot of people on the original video was making the illusion that epic rap battles were talking about the transatlantic slave trade, although that may be the case in my opinion. I think given the Romans' history with slavery in general, and particularly wheat, it's a double-edged sword, because Romans, yes, they got slaves to farm wheat and various grains and stuff like that to feed the empire, but also as well, I think the reason why it's more directed at Shaka Zulu himself rather than the colour of his skin is because Shaka Zulu actually banned the growing of wheat after his mother's death, and that was one of the major contributions which ultimately led to his assassination by his half-brothers, because he banned the growing of wheat, and as a result people didn't eat so good anymore, and the easiest way to annoy people and turn them against you is to starve them. But that's the first epic rap battles of history video that I've looked at on this channel. Hopefully it's been good. Hopefully it's been a bit of a change to some of the other ones that are perhaps a bit more serious or a darker tone to them necessarily that sometimes appear on this channel. I'm still going to look at some Sabaton videos and stuff like that going forward, but I just wanted to try out this, see the reception of it, see if you guys like it, if you would like me to do more of it, and if so, if there is more epic rap battles of history you want me to have a look at, then please do recommend them, because as I said, I haven't watched them in years. This is the first video that I have watched in years of them, so let me know, and without further ado, thanks for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Bye bye.